is Rachel and I'm here today to do my March reading wrap up. So this is quite late. I've just been very busy and also lazy. I went to Paris with my mum, so that was like the main reason. But yeah, I have my March reading wrap up today. I was very happy with my reading in March. I think I read around 10 things and then started obviously a lot more because I just start new books all the time, as we now know. So yeah, that was a thing. I'm just going to get into it because yeah, there are a few things that I wanted to talk about. So the first two books I'm not going to actually say that much about because I read them for the Zoe 24-hour readathon, which happened at the start of the month, and I vlogged that and I talked about the books I finished in that vlog. So if you want to watch that, I will link it in the cards. The first book I read was A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and I gave that 3 stars. Then I read Lance by Vladimir Nabokov, and I gave this 3 stars. And then I read the 4th volume of the Scott Pilgrim series, which is Scott Pilgrim Gets It Together by Brian Lee O'Malley, and I gave this one 4 stars. So I do my books in orders of star ratings, so I'm going to go from the lowest to the highest. So the next book I want to talk about is Women by Chloe Caldwell. So this was one that I found on BookBeat and I'd never heard of it before, but I just thought it sounded quite good, so I decided to pick it up. So this basically follows a same-sex relationship. A woman who has always thought of herself as straight meets a butch lesbian, and she basically comes to realise through the book that she is bisexual and has a relationship with this woman. And it's really hard that I gave it 3 stars because I really enjoyed it. There was some really great things about it. There was a really good representation. So we had like butch representation, lesbian representation, bisexual representation. There was people who were genderqueer, transsexual people. Like there were people of all different like sexual orientations and like expressions and stuff, which was really, really cool, and I really enjoyed that. But the 2 women both work at a library in it, and they talk about Goodreads, and like one of them is like following the other and looking at her Goodreads to see what she's reading and what she's up to and stuff, which I really liked because obviously I use Goodreads a lot. I've never seen it mentioned in a book before. Other things I enjoyed is just this like reference to like becoming, like realising you are drawn to like the same sex, and then having this like education, which I think is quite common and people don't talk about it that much, but everyone kind of has it. And it's this like the minute you start being a bisexual or lesbian or whatever, like, okay, have you watched The L Word? Have you watched Lip Service? Have, like all these things like are just like everybody knows these things. It talked about those in this book and her like exploring through like all of these things, and that was quite funny. And the book does feature a very, very toxic relationship, and yeah, like when she first meets the butch lesbian woman who she eventually has a relationship with, this woman is already in a relationship and she says, I'm very happy in my relationship and I won't be leaving it, and then just continues to have a relationship throughout, and they're very like manipulative of each other, and that was quite a cool dynamic to see because you don't normally get that as much in books. But the only thing I would say is that there wasn't much of it was very character driven and there wasn't much of an actual plot. So like when you got to the end, it just kind of fizzled out. There wasn't like a big ending for me. So that was definitely a drawback, but it was very enjoyable. So I gave it 3 stars. It's a good 3 stars. It's an enjoyable 3 stars, but there was just a lot of drawbacks to it. So yes, I listened to that on audiobook and the audiobook was quite good. The next book I also gave 3 stars was Dodie Clark's Secrets for the Mad, Obsessions, Confessions and Life Lessons. This is by Dodie, who is a YouTuber. She makes a lot of like really cool music, and this is basically like anecdotes and song lyrics and little drawings and pictures and stuff, and this was a fast read, quite enjoyable. I think because I've not been having the best time mental health wise, I always get drawn to books about mental health when that's happening, and so I really wanted to pick this one up, and it was quite interesting. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. It was kind of middle of the road. If you enjoy like Dodie's channel and her music and stuff, you will probably enjoy this, but yeah, so I read that one. The next book I finished was City of Ashes, which I gave 3.5 stars. This is by Cassandra Clare and is book 2 in the Modular Instruments series. I am taking part in the Emma Books read-along for this series because I've just always wanted to read it before, but I remember reading City of Bones and then being like, oh, but there's like 12 or whatever, however many books there are. I remember just being like, there's just so many books, I can't do it. But because she's doing it so that it all happens in a year, I feel like that's manageable, so I'm just going to go along with it. I've already finished City of Glass, which I enjoyed a lot more than this one. This one was good and I did enjoy it, but I just thought there's just one character who is always teased to die, and it's one of those things where, like, when you have someone teased to die but you know they're not going to die all the time, you're just like, oh, I wish you'd just find a new plot device because I know that it's not going to happen. So yeah, this was enjoyable, but also that was a bit annoying. But I wasn't annoyed enough to throw it on the floor, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, it's moved away from that and not done it as much in City of Glass. But yeah, that was annoying me. The next thing I read, I gave 4 stars, and it was Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops by Jen Campbell. This is the second book I read by Jen Campbell. I actually recently started the bookshop book because I enjoyed this so much. This is just really funny. This is like it says on the cover, just stupid shit people go in bookshops and say. And most of these are from Jen Campbell when she was working in a bookshop, but also some of them are sent in. And this is just a good thing to, like, just have a happy, enjoyable, quick reading experience. Like, I was feeling quite sad and I picked this up and I finished it within like an hour or two and I was in a really good mood. It just made me happy and laugh. And so, yeah, this was great. Then the next book that I finished was The Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filer. I don't have the book here because it was a library book and I've had to give it back by now. But this was fantastic. This followed a young man who has a very difficult, traumatic experience as a child, and how this affects him as he grows up, like how this leads to him having some mental health problems and stuff like that. I will say this is triggering for mental health problems, obviously, but also for like family members dying. I went through a similar experience to the one that he went through as a young person, and I found it, like, it took me a very long time to read, and it's not a long book and it has pictures in. But the reason that it took me so long is that there were times when I just had to shut the book and leave it because it was just a bit triggering. However, the reason it was triggering is because it was so well written and the character went through so many experiences that I went through and they were so well done. So I would say it's a really good representation of like that traumatic experience. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think my favourite thing about it was definitely the writing style. So the narrator references the reader a lot and is very aware of them being there, which I obviously have seen in books before, but I feel like it's usually like every 50 pages or something, whereas he is constantly, it's like he's having a conversation with us, like every other page he's doing it. And like there's moments where he'll mention a character and be like, oh, don't forget her name, it's important later, and it was just really well done. So that was really cool and I gave that 4 stars. Thank you to Katie from Books and Things for recommending that to me because I hadn't heard of it before, surprisingly, because it won like a Costa Award or something. But yeah, that was great. So there was that one. And then the next book I read was another audiobook, and this was Nevertheless by Alec Baldwin. So I listened to this an audiobook and it was read by Alec Baldwin, which is my favourite kind of audiobook. And I adored this. I have always adored Alec Baldwin. For some weird reason, I have some love of Alec Baldwin, and my mum's always found it really weird. Yeah, I just love the guy. So I did write some notes when I was reading that one. So the first thing is that I loved him discussing actors from old movies. So I really like old movies, and I don't really know many people who enjoy old movies other than my mum. So I never get to talk about them, but it was really cool because it was like he was talking about them. So he was talking about like Gregory Peck and Clark Gable and Marlon Brando and like just all these amazing people. And he was talking about how these older actors had a very specific style and a way that they acted, and that nowadays we don't have that. Like when people go from like one role to the next role, it can be completely different. Whereas someone like Clark Gable always had a very similar style of acting and how he really enjoyed that. And that is something that I really enjoy in old movies. It's one of the reasons why if I find somebody that I like in an old movie, I tend to watch all of their movies because I know I'm going to like them in all of them, like with Bing Crosby. I adore Bing Crosby. And I've watched so many of his films because I like his acting style and it runs through every movie. So I thought that was a really interesting like discussion that he had. And he was talking about also, he was playing, what's his name? I can't remember. But Marlon Brando plays him in the film version, and Alec Baldwin basically played him on Broadway, and he was talking about playing a role that is so clearly overcast by Marlon Brando because it's one of the most famous films of all time. And yeah, that was really, really cool. And yeah, I just enjoyed his just generally, like, he was talking about SNL and 30 Rock and being on Friends and just all these things, and I just thought it was a really good autobiography, and I really enjoy it. I've definitely in the past year read a lot more autobiographies than I've ever read before, and I do really, really enjoy them, especially when it's the author themselves reading it. That's something that I'm really getting into at the moment. So yeah, that was really cool, and I gave that 4 stars. And then the other book that I gave 4 stars this month was The Witch Doesn't Mend, in this one by Amanda Lovelace. This is Amanda Lovelace's new poetry collection. Her first one was The Princess Saves Herself in this one, which I read, and I think I gave 3 stars or 3.5 stars. This one I gave more. I really enjoyed this one. I read it on the plane to Paris. It's the very first read, and I would say I preferred this to The Princess Saves Herself in this one because this one is a lot more passionate and unapologetic. I think with the other, you can kind of tell it's her first poetry collection, and with this one, I think because of how well her first one did, I think she's a lot more confident with her poetry in this one, and I think that's why this was a lot better. And I found it fantastic, and all the writing's in red, which is cool. I didn't have my page tabs on the plane, so I had to fold all the corners of the pages down, which I hate doing. There were so many great poems in here. Like, one that I really enjoyed was, "It's more than okay to wake up with the overwhelming urge to cover up all the mirrors. Self-love is not an instant nor an overnight evolution, but at least try to open up the windows to let the breeze in every once in a while. A witch knows mirrors do sometimes lie." That was one that I really enjoyed, amongst many. This is a brilliant collection, and I would highly recommend it. And then the last book that I finished was a reread, was a 5 stars, obviously. It was Red Rising. I've really wanted to reread the Red Rising trilogy ever since I read it, and especially with Iron Gold coming out recently, definitely wanted to get more on that. So I finished Red Rising. I'm currently like 100 pages off the end of Golden Sun, so I'll finish that soon, and then I can finally read Morning Star and then read Iron Gold, and I'm so excited about that. But yeah, this was 5 stars, amazing. I definitely need to stop reading this book or get a new copy because it is absolutely destroyed. But this is fantastic. This is just undefinable. It's like sci-fi and fantasy and dystopian and just like this massive mix of amazing things that I really enjoy, and it's so fast-paced, like so fast-paced. I know that's one of the reasons that a lot of people don't enjoy it or give it a bit lower of a rating, but I love that. I think it's fantastic. So yeah, 5 stars for this bad boy. They are all the books that I finished in the month of March, and then I have a few books that I was like currently reading and stuff. The first one is Harry Potter: A History of Magic. I said in my March TBR that I really wanted to start this and read like the first chapter or something. I read a lot more than that. I'm currently on chapter 5 and about halfway through, which is 133 pages. This is amazing. I'm so in love with this book. It's like just gives you all the history and background to the Harry Potter universe and to like the monsters in it and like the astronomy in it and the herbs and like all these things, and I'm so in love with this book, and I love telling people that I'm reading it. Like when I'm texting my girlfriend just like, "Oh yeah, I've just been reading The History of Magic for class" or something. Like I love pretending I'm a Harry Potter student and that I'm reading this. That's like the height of my day. So that's really cool, and I'm enjoying that. And then the other 2 books that I was currently reading through March were both ones that I mentioned in my TBRs wanting to read. I was going to read one in March and one in April, but I've ended up just reading both of them at the same time, which is annoying. But anyway, the first is Anne Bronte by Agnes Grey. No, it's Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, which I've never read before. This is the first time read, and this is the book club pick for the Bronte 200 book club that Lucy from Lucy the Reader is running. And I'm also really excited because I have this beautiful bookmark that says, "Reading is my favourite occupation when I have leisure for it and books to read," and this is from Agnes Grey. I love it. Obviously I got that from the parsonage. But yes, this is really good so far. I think I'm not enjoying it as much as the other Bronte books. I think it's because she has a very similar job to the one I have. She's basically an old style au pair. She's moved to a new country and she's looking after someone's children and she lives with them. And I think it means that, like, when she's moaning about things, like when she's like, "Oh, the kids are doing this and blah blah blah," and I'm just like, yeah, you need to stop them doing that. That's the whole point of your job. So yeah, I don't know how much I'm enjoying this. I am enjoying it, but at the same time, not doing. So yeah, in between with this, we'll see how it goes. I'm only like 40 pages into it, so yeah, we'll see how I end up feeling about that when I'm finished. And then the other one is a reread, and it is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I am trying to read all of Jane Austen's works this year, and so this is the first of her actual, like, proper novels that I've managed to get to, and I am on page 53 and I'm quite enjoying this. This is just one of the funniest books and a book that I enjoy so much anyway, so obviously I'm going to be continuing with this one. So they are all the books that I got to in March. Sorry this video is so late, I'm just shit at keeping on top of things. But anyway, there you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!